Now, WheyBeyond is an amazing product. So this is a glutathione enhancer. It has mild anti-inflammatory activity as well, so it synergizes Empower, although Empower is the kick-butt anti-inflammatory. And the nice thing is that it has a very high biological value. How many people here have heard of whey? Now, what's different about this whey? It's the way this whey is processed. It's just way better than what we see in the market. Right? So what's different about it is it's derived from the sweet dairy products, okay? Now, when you make cheese, I mean, everybody's heard of the saying, Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. The curds are cheese. When you make cheese, they take away the casein, and what's left behind is whey. Well, you know, in the days of the Romans, the only people who got that whey were the soldiers and the elite, because they realized that there was antibacterial, antiviral, and antimicrobial activity, and it supported muscle and recovery. What's different here is that it doesn't come from a process that uses acid hydrolysis or uses low pHs to curdle the milk. You know, whey protein has three-dimensionally configured proteins, and these proteins fit in lock and keys. And if you think of them like a lock and key, they fit in there, and they have a specific configuration that fits a receptor site. Now, if you're using acid or high temperatures to process this, to create this cheese, which is often used in the cottage cheese industry, they use acid, rennet, and other enzymes, okay? What happens is that you're damaging this protein. Now, the three-dimensional configuration, if you think of it, it kind of, you know, like, I'm not flexing. I'm just showing you something. Like, so if you think of the peptide, a peptide would be like a polypeptide, a linear polypeptide with various amino acids on it, right? So what happens is this thing is usually configured and rolled up into a three-dimensional configuration that's held up by disulfide bonds and ionic bonds. Now, what happens when you use acid, you break the bonds, okay? And all of a sudden, this thing unravels. And that's what you get in your protein when it's denatured. Most companies say, well, our product's undenatured. Whatever. I'll tell you why. You can tell. If you get a plain whey protein and it has a little bit of a bitter off taste, it's usually denatured. Now, the reason is, the way this protein actually unravels itself into this three-dimensionally configured protein is that when it's being transcribed in the cell, it has what they call hydrophobic. How many people here know what hydrophobic means? It means it doesn't like water, right? Hydrophilic means it likes water. These hydrophobic amino acids need to be hidden, so they get folded in. And then it forms disulfide bonds, and they're in the middle, in the center of this three-dimensional glob, you see? So that it's away from the water. That's what happens. But when you unravel it, now they're fighting with the water, they end up on your taste buds, and they create the bitter taste. Now, this is not just about flavor. Our product, you know, is not flavored with artificial sweeteners and artificial flavors. But, you know, how many people here recognize the fact that the majority of whey proteins in the marketplace are flavored and sweetened with artificial compounds? And there's a reason for that. The majority are. There are some that still get away with not using these artificials because they do other things. But the reason why you need the high potency of the artificial sweeteners and the artificial flavors is because you got to mask those hydrophobic compounds, you see? When you have an undenatured product, it tastes good. The plain product we have, if you have the plain product, it almost tastes sweet because it's coming from what we call the sweet dairy system that doesn't use the pH. So now, we get away with using natural berry extracts to flavor it, and only 80 milligrams of stevia. Now, what happens for those companies who actually use stevia to sweeten their whey protein, that is denatured, okay, a denatured whey, which needs more stevia, you need roughly per serving of 30 grams, usually works out to about 190 to 280 milligrams of stevia. It depends on the stevia-side content of the stevia. Now, the point is, not without getting into detail, is that when you start to get up to that level, you get the aftertaste from the stevia. So you get that licorice aftertaste. So what do they do to accommodate for that? You've seen companies where they use xylitol with their protein powders. How many people here have had xylitol is an alcohol sugar, it's a carbohydrate. So what they're doing is putting an alcohol sugar in that has almost the sweetness of sugar, and then using stevia in smaller quantities so you don't get the aftertaste. But now you've got a protein that's diluted with xylitol. Does anybody know that xylitol can kill your dog? 6 grams. 6 grams is usually what's in a 30-gram serving. So that's enough to kill your dog, and it tastes great to them. Yeah. Well, xylitol, humans can handle it. They can metabolize it. The point is that it has a high glycemic index. People think that it's low because it's not a sugar. It's an alcohol sugar. So We don't have to do that because we don't have to mask the off taste. So that's one of the benefits of having a product that really is undenatured. The other one is that those three-dimensional configurations have a purpose. They have a role. They trigger various receptor sites that improve appetite control, that improve immune system response. We've heard about whey protein enhancing immune system response, improving the body's ability to fight microbes, right? Well, that only happens really with a good quality whey that maintains the three-dimensional configuration of those immune system activating peptides, okay? So now if you use a denatured protein, you get the amino acids you need for anabolism, but you don't get all the other benefits. Like you don't get the glutathione precursors. This product here supplies glutamylcysteine. Now, glutamylcysteine are the two amino acids that are precursors for glutathione. And as you age, that's another factor that declines in concentration. So what's the big deal? Everybody throws around this glutathione thing. And the reality is that glutathione is one of the main, there's various endogenous antioxidants, catalase, superoxide dismutase, but glutathione peroxidase is one of the main ones that detoxifies our cells from the metabolic byproducts that our cells create. It's like exhaust. Your car produces exhaust that's toxic. And glutathione is the main factor that neutralizes that exhaust in your cells. Now, here's a cool thing to keep in mind. It's kind of a trivia, but relates to what we're doing. Acetaminophen we know is a toxic compound to the liver, right? But we know that, you know, if people consume too much of this for whatever reason, they would consume too much, you can die. And you end up in the hospital, for example, with acetaminophen toxicity. The first thing that the emergency ward tries to do is do what? Raise. That's the only antidote. The only antidote is to raise glutathione level in the liver because it is the detoxifying agent. So why wouldn't we do that every day? It doesn't make sense as a reactive system, right? So, and you have to do it within 2 hours because after that, it's probably been enough damage to the liver that it's hard to recover. So that's what this does. I use it every day. Now, we were just talking a few minutes ago, well, how much do you use? You know, the more muscle you have, the more you need. You know, this is set up as a 20-gram serving. And I have to say, honestly, 20-gram serving is great for women because women carry less muscle than men. It's great for men who are not really as active as I might be or as you might be. But when you get active and you're putting on more muscle, then you probably need 2 servings a day. You know, I use one before and one after my workout. And sometimes if I haven't had enough to eat, I might use one before bedtime. So, you know, I'll try to consume, you know, maybe when I was bodybuilding, it would be 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, which is a lot. And now I'm probably half that because I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm just trying to be a healthy husband and a healthy dad. So the key thing is that, you know, I don't want to give artificial compounds to my kids. And my kids need this because they need to support immune system. They need to support the development. You know, a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old, they develop at a rate that you'd wish you can build muscle at, you know? So they need these building blocks more than we do for immune system activity.